So here is the table I'll be making over today. It's a table I've had in my garage for some time. I got it when I first moved across the country. Here are the chairs that go with it, and then the leaf that goes in the top of the table. I'm gonna start by cleaning everything with Crud Cutter first, and then I flip the table over onto the top, and I'm going to paint the legs. And I'm doing that with a beautiful Annie Sloan color called Enfleur. It's a really nice chocolate brown. So I'm going to do a technique called Frottage, and I mixed the meal and a clear glaze together, and it's 1 part paint to about 4 parts glaze. The frottage technique is done by taking your paint and glaze mixture and brushing that on, and then taking either tissue paper, which is what I'm using, or crumpled up newspaper, and then putting down a layer. And then you take your crumpled paper and lay it down over it, and it leaves the crumpled marks in the glaze mixture. And it's really cool. It was a little bit difficult for me to do it in this small area. You have to really be careful you're not using your fingertips at all, because it will leave like fingertip marks. So once I took the paper off, I noticed that there was like a little bit of that going on, so I would tap that out and blend the paint mixture in a little bit better. And it gave it kind of a cool, like marbled, older, vintage kind of look. And here it is with one leg completely done and the other one ready to go. And both legs are completely painted, and then I'm going to go around the skirt of the table and do the same technique all the way around. So here's the underside of the table, the legs, the skirt, all done with the Frottage technique using the Annie Sloan paint and General Finishes clear glaze. And here I've made a similar mixture using black, so 1 part black and 4 parts glaze, and I'm painting that on, and I'm ragging that off with a lint-free cloth. So far I've used the Frottage technique for the Annie, and then this is the ragging technique for the black, and it's giving it a really old world look. It looks so cool. All right, now it's time to start with the top. I removed the tape that I put on there so when we moved it would stop sliding apart because of that area that's open for the leaf to go into. So I removed that and then I cleaned everything with Cred Cutter, wiped that down, and then I sanded to get rid of that finish, and the finish was coming off pretty easily. And after I sanded, I went over the tabletop 2 different times with a clean wet sponge to get rid of any residual dust or debris. Okay, now the tabletop is completely clean and I went over it and made sure that there was no dust on it. I'm going to go ahead and lay down my base layer of more Enfleur over the entire top. going to go ahead and add another coat of the on-fleur over the entire tabletop now. The tabletop is pretty dry, so I decided to go ahead and do another mixture of the Emile and the glaze. So 1 part paint, 4 parts glaze, and I'm going to go around the entire top again and do the frottage technique. And this was a little trial and error. I was trying to avoid using my fingertips at all. And as you can tell, as I continue doing this over the entire tabletop, I found a way better technique that prevented any fingertip marks from showing through the finish. So here I'm laying down the glaze, I'm putting my crumpled paper, and I'm using a large deck brush to go over the entire top, and that prevented any of those pesky fingertip marks showing up. And I just continued that entire technique over the entire table, and it worked out so good. I did notice that as I painted the glaze mixture over the top of the table, it was really important to overlap it with the sections that I had just done. That makes it a lot more cohesive and makes it look so much better. So here I am finishing up the tabletop. It's all covered with the cool frottage technique, and I'm going to go ahead and do the black and glaze mixture over the entire top by laying the glaze mixture down first and then ragging it off with a lint-free cloth. And the ragging is done by taking that cloth and wadding it up and laying the glaze mixture down and just doing a tapping repetitive motion over the entire surface. Here I'm taking the Annie Sloan cream chalk paint and I put a little on a palette, and I'm going to dip my brush in and then dry brush the areas and bring out the interesting details in the table. And I did that all over the legs and around the edge of the tabletop. It brings out a lot of the details that otherwise would be lost. Now for an added layer of interest, I'm putting a Harlequin stencil on the tabletop, and I'm dry brushing the Annie Sloan cream paint. This turned out so cool. I really think that it gives it a really vintage, old world look. I went ahead and put a clear wax all over the entire table. I wanted to add a little bit of sparkle to the tabletop, so I put the stencil down and I used a gold gilding wax and went over the tabletop in random areas and filled in some of the Harlequin design just sporadically. Once I finished with the top of the table, I used the same gilding wax and I went around the perimeter, adding more sparkle and detail to all of the little areas that I wanted to have pop out a little bit more. I did that to the perimeter, and I also put the gold gilding wax on the legs. Here it is, all finished. I'm really happy with how it came out. I'm sorry I don't have a staging wall, but I am working on that. But here's an overview of the finished piece. Thank you everyone for watching.